Are you ready?
Ready.
We are going to call to order our 7:30 hearing on Milton Board of Appeals. My name is Jeffrey Milton. I'll be acting as the chairman tonight. This is upon the application of Ronit Voigt for, just hang on a second. Let me get the advertisement. I'm sorry, bear with me.
I have it right here.
Okay. Upon the application of Ronit Voigt, trustee of the Voigt Nominee Trust, dated January 8, 2019, on file with the board, for a special permit and variances from the terms of the Milton zoning bylaw, the applicant proposes to demolish a detached garage and build a two-story addition to the rear of the existing family home at 56 Hinckley Road in Milton. The home was built in approximately 1900 and, as a single-family home, is considered compliant with the terms of the Milton zoning bylaws with respect to use and dimension, except that the existing detached garage is dimensionally non-compliant as it is too close to the left side lot line. A plot plan dated November 20, 2018 shows the addition to be built at a distance of 5.8 feet from the left side property line and 23.7 feet from the rear property line. Plans dated November 28, 2018 show the addition to contain a three-car garage, some common entry and laundry space, and an 800 square foot, one-bedroom temporary apartment. The property lies in a Residence C zoning district. Section 3A9 of the bylaws permits the creation of a complete and separate dwelling unit within the single-family home or on the second floor of an attached garage for a period of not more than 4 years upon the issuance of a special permit by the board and subject to certain prescribed conditions. Section 6C1 of the bylaws, side yards, requires that new buildings or new portions of buildings be built a distance of 10 feet from the side property lines. Section 6D1, rear yards, requires that new buildings or new portions of buildings be built at a distance of 30 feet from rear property lines. The addition, as proposed, would violate these sections of the bylaw, and it also lacks the required special permit for a temporary apartment. The applicant seeks those variances and the special permit. To the extent that an additional variance is required to accommodate the requirement that temporary apartments be located within existing dwellings or on the second floor of an attached garage, the applicant seeks a variance to permit that as well. All as set forth in the application and plans on file with the board and open to public inspection. My name is Jeffrey Mullen. I'll be acting as the chairman. With me is Emmanuel Alves and Kathleen O'Donnell, both of whom are members of the board. I have in the file an application submitted by Attorney Marion McKettrick on behalf of the applicant, the letter of denial from the Milton Building Commission, an additional letter explaining the application from Mrs. McKettrick, a set of floor plans, information on the assessors, details, a notice of the abutters to whom notice was sent. I also have two letters, I have three letters. I don't think it's, oh, no, I have two letters from abutters. I have an additional letter from the applicant's counsel. I have a letter from Susan Riley and James Riley and from Lucy Meadow and Robert Murray, who I know are with us tonight, both supporting the application. I'll give you a sense, just to, in the interest of time, I'll give you a sense of the letter. The letter from the Rileys indicate that the Rileys have, the family, Mrs. Riley, Susan Riley's family, has lived in the neighborhood across the street since 1957, and they've lived in the home since 1988. They believe that the addition will add value to a positive impact on all homes in the neighborhood. They believe that this is a second-generation homeowners in the neighborhood since they moved here in 1988. There have been a total of 5 families who have been second-generation homeowners. This would allow Mrs. Voigt to remain in the Milton home with her son and his family and be able to take care of home maintenance. It's a sense of the letter, a generational issue. The letter from Lucy Meadows and Robert Murray, we're writing in wholehearted support of the plan. As neighbors, we see the Voigt house from the rear of our house. Makes perfect sense because of the huge role that Herb and Ronit have played in, Herb is Ronit's deceased husband, have played in strengthening the town of Milton. Herb served, as many people know in Milton, he served on the Library Board of Trustees, President Foundation for Education, as Library Foundation Board member and town meeting member. And I know a lot of people appreciate the service that he and Ronit provided to the town. Ronit has served on the Warrant Committee as a town meeting member, President of the League of Women Voters, President of Congregational Beth Shalom, President of Columbine Cliffs Neighborhood Association. Holy moly. So it's too long to read. I don't want to embarrass you. Finally, aging in place is the most, and the reason I want to read the letter, aging is an issue for the town. Aging in place is the most important movement in housing for the aging population. Makes sense for families and for communities. It makes economic sense. We are proud that Milton has been part of this movement by providing existing addition to many houses in the neighborhood. So that's Lucy Meadows and Robert Murray's letter. Thank you for that. Thank you. So I see that the applicant and her counsel are here. Would you approach the table, and welcome back to the Board of Appeals. Mr. McKettrick, it's good to see you. How can we help you? You should all introduce yourself so that people know who we all are.
I'm Mary McKettrick. I'm representing the applicant for purposes of the application, and Ronit Voigt is sitting right here. This is Jen Voigt. This is Justin Voigt. They are the parents and the family that will be sharing the residence if this application is approved and if the addition is constructed. We've been working for several months on this project. They've been working for longer than that, discussing what would be possible with their architect, but they came to me to talk about the zoning and what relief would be required. Developing a good plan with an architect was a significant task here because this is an older home, a really beautiful home. Inside has all kinds of amazing woodwork and all kinds of features that you really wouldn't want to change. So, and it's a Victorian era house, I guess you'd call it, around 1900. So it's divided up into fairly small spaces. So in order to create additional space for a temporary apartment and an addition, in order to basically join the two families, the best approach seemed to be to create an addition. Then the architect had to look at the way the lot is shaped, the way the house is currently placed on the lot. It's a reasonably large lot compared to other lots in the neighborhood. This is a C zone. The minimum lot size is 7,500 square feet, and this lot is larger than that. But because the house is placed at an angle, it kind of faces the side lot line, and the lot is at the corner of two streets. This restricts where you can put an addition, and in fact, no matter where you try to put the addition, you do run into side lot line issues. And in this case, because you're on two streets, you have to observe frontage setbacks on two sides of the lot. So those are restrictions that don't exist for every lot, but they do for this one. So they worked for quite a long time with their architect, came up with the plans that you have in your file. And I'm just going to briefly, I think the letter actually addressed the seminal reason for this application, which is that about a year ago, Herb Voigt passed away very suddenly and unexpectedly. I was quite young, and that leaves Ronit living in a large house by herself. So the family has been trying to make plans for how they can stay in proximity to each other, but for Ronit to have her privacy and have separate quarters. And because the house is so important to the family, they'd really like to be able to stay in the house. So this proposal is the solution to that problem. Justin and Jen have twins who are not infants anymore, but they're still young. They're beautiful girls. And so Ronit also, in addition to working still, does a fair amount of childcare for them. So it's a good arrangement all around. I'm sure they would like Ronit to be there even more, but I don't know that she wants to leave her job at this point. But long-term, it's a great idea because at least it's appealing to someone, and I'm about the same age. If something happens or you retire and you become a little bit more frail, it's great to know your family is nearby. At the same time, it's nice to know you can go off to your own place and be private. So I think it's a really nice setup. I've had a number of these applications, some on much smaller lots with a lot more setback variances required, and several of them have involved this situation. The proposal is to build the addition, which will house space for an in-law, for a temporary apartment, which would become a family room if it weren't used as an apartment. And what the applicants want to do is to build the temporary apartment as they build the addition. It's not a huge difference, it's more a question of time. What happens if you, according to the way the bylaw is written, and if you're not in any particular hurry, you're supposed to build the addition, then your existing house consists of the addition and the original house. Then you come in with your application for a temporary apartment based on all of the size requirements. Providing you're doing everything that's required in the bylaw, you should get your special permit. In this case, because they want to do it at the same time, they need a variance for that aspect of the special permit for the temporary apartment. The other variances that are requested are setback variances on the rear lot line. A new addition would encroach into the setback, and on the side, on the left side, where there is currently a garage that's almost on the lot line, the garage is going to be demolished, but they will be building a new garage in the addition, which will house 3 cars, and their plans that you have in front of you have a garage that's only 5.8 feet from the side lot line. The required setback is 10 feet. So what's happened since we filed the application is that Renee and her son and daughter-in-law have been meeting with neighbors, and they've had tremendous support from the neighborhood. They're really well known. They've lived there for years, and in general, every neighbor but one was, I think, totally satisfied with the design and everything about this application. Their neighbor to the left, the Pauleys, and they are closest to that side, although their house is at a reasonable distance from their side lot line. They were concerned about the setback variance on their side, and basically, I think probably initially just concerned about the addition in general. They have written a letter of support, and we have it with us, but their letter of support asks that the addition on that side be brought back within the 10-foot setback. So, although we think the design is a very good one, the architect worked really hard to create a design that flows and looks right with the original house. The applicants went back to their architect and had the architect design an alternative proposal that's different in one respect. And we have large plans here that we're going to pass out to you so that you can review it. We have a plot plan that shows this alternative design. And then we have full architectural plans, just like what you have been given already, except that the left side of the garage, the third bay of the garage, the whole structure has been moved forward.
Oh, I see, yeah.
Yeah, and because the side lot line goes up at an angle, by moving that piece of the garage forward, you can bring the structure within the 10-foot, outside the 10-foot setback, so that there's no longer an encroachment on that side.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a solution that we've proposed. I have somewhere with me tonight, I have copies of, we have a number of letters, not just the 2 that are in the record, but for clarity or simplicity for the board, I've taken a GIS map and I've sort of outlined with yellow lines the locations for people who are on the petition or have sent individual letters, and that gives you some idea of the support from neighbors surrounding the lot. In the Pauley's case, I put a little note. Their letter is in there, and in their letter they asked for they ask if the side of the addition can be moved in within the 10-foot line, and they ask if there can be some landscaping or vegetation, and they identify a strip between a granite outcropping and a holly tree. It's about a 30-foot or 35-foot strip. So I think the applicants would really love to have stayed with their original design. They certainly have tremendous support for it, but their neighbor on this side, and it's a neighborhood where people care a lot about not making their neighbors unhappy, I guess that's the way I'd put it, is not happy with the addition if it's in that 10-foot setback. I don't know that they're here tonight, but they did write a letter, and we've given you a copy. We have a copy. Maybe you should give them that because it's easier to read. Um, So, in a nutshell, there's lots of details in these architectural plans. If you may have questions, we'd be happy to answer them. That seems to be the issue, the only issue as far as we're concerned. From our perspective, from the work that the applicants have done, the issue is satisfying the neighbor on that closest side where the garage will be. Just there's a very good reason why this addition might look larger than it would otherwise, because it includes a 3-car garage. And the reason for that is that we're taking down the existing garage, which is on the lot line, and we're creating an in-law apartment. One of the requirements in the temporary apartment bylaw is that you have adequate parking. And this will create 3 indoor parking spaces. In addition, you can see from the plans that there's an existing very large circular driveway, and so there's plenty of room for an additional car if the family has an additional car, and there's also room for guests to park on that driveway. So this lot has plenty of space for parking. So it's not, it looks like a very substantial addition. It's pretty substantial, but the reason is that it includes the garage, and the garage is part of the house, which means that now it has to be at a 10-foot setback rather than 8 feet, which would be an accessory setback.
All right.
Okay.
You all set?
Yep.
Okay, so let me just do a little bit of housekeeping, okay, so people know what's happened here. A couple things. The record has been supplemented by Mrs. McKettrick. A letter from, I'm going to read the letter from Lauren and Greg Pauley, who live, if you're looking at the house on Hinckley, they live to the immediate left. Their address is 50 Hinckley Road. Dear Ronit and Justin, we greatly appreciate you including us in the development and approval process for your addition. We also thank you for your willingness to acknowledge and accommodate our concerns. With your agreement to reevaluate how the structure can be designed to be within the 10-foot buffer from our property line, along with your commitment to landscape plantings from the ledge up to our existing holly tree to help buffer the view from our side, we would like to confirm our support of your proposal. And is the testimony of the applicant that you're agreeing to those conditions?
If they have to. Yes. They're sad to have to change the design, but this is the situation.
I don't think it helps to that. The Polly's also do have a 3-car garage, just, there's a precedence.
Oh, I don't think it's
It's not
probably
really
the size of the garage. I think it's,
The proximity to
Yeah.
the property line.
I'm going to just clarify, commitment to landscape plantings from the ledge up to our existing holly tree. What are we talking about?
Yeah.
We're talking about, well, the distance is about 35 feet.
From where to where?
There's a rock along the edge of the property that's being
Doing a
described
little
as the
old
ledge.
conveyancing here and the old,
Can you mark it on?
By the rock, by the hole in the
plot
ice, yeah.
plan? Can you sort of approximately show where that would be?
what kind of plantings are we talking about?
I don't think there's been a discussion about that. My suggestion is arborvitaes because they fill in quickly and grow quickly.
Is it an evergreen planting? Regardless of whether it's arborvitae, is it an evergreen
Yes.
type of planting? Okay.
So the ledge actually goes between our property and Dennis O'Brien's property.
Your property, okay.
So he's in a butter as well.
Okay,
So-
so,
Yes.
All right, so we've marked I don't want to take testimony here, but we've marked about where the planting would be, which is about from the beginning of the current garage, about what looks to be 50 feet. Is that fair? Is that right?
Between 35 and 45.
I think we
35 and
measured it,
45.
and we think we'll say 35 feet.
Okay,
Or
so-
35, what'd you say?
Between 35 to 45 feet.
Oh, okay,
I
well,
just want to get a sense,
Very
if we
That's
are going to,
Yeah.
plantings from the ledge to the holly tree are not going to survive, for the record. So just want to get a sense of what we were talking about.
the holly tree is on the neighbor's property, the Polly's property, and it's quite substantial.
Okay.
That's why I think it already blocks that part of the view.
Okay.
And so that's, I think, why they identified that as the stopping point.
And then we've got a petition signed by many people, 50 people. We're in support of the neighborhood, of the neighbors, and we're neighbors within 300 feet. We've got a letter from Dennis O'Brien and Elizabeth Dearman in support. And where do they live?
There's the abutters behind. He's right here, he's Dennis.
We're butters on,
Right.
Columbine.
On Columbine, yeah. And then you've got Beth Schiffman, whose address is,
Do they,
she's across on Columbine.
services letter?
Yes,
Well,
it should be in there.
She's on Hinckley. Yeah, that's on Hinckley, yeah. And then there's a letter from Noel Llewellyn and Michael Zervis from 96 Ridge.
That's directly behind.
They're direct.
On the north.
Services on the plot plan.
Okay, so that's the full record. Let me ask you a couple of questions, all right, and then we'll open it up. Is there a change in the square footage between the original design and the design that you've given us tonight?
Of the house?
No, on the addition, this new addition, what's the
That's what-
difference in the square footage? Is it the same as it was before with the other plan, but it's just reconfigured differently?
Is the footprint actually different, or did we just moved it forward?
It's different. They've moved
The reason the inside, the gross square footage, counting both floors, is going to be slightly different because it's a little smaller. Because by moving it, if you look at the architectural plans, and you look at the roof line and the depiction of the side views and that kind of thing, you'll see that what you really have is like a garage and then a garage. So by moving it forward, instead of it being continuous, that upstairs space is smaller.
Okay.
I can
So-
tell you that. You do have the plans and the,
Is it fair to say, just for our
there.
purposes, is it fair to say that the new design is smaller than the old design? Okay.
slightly, yes. Okay.
Is there going to be a modification to the driveway?
I think there would likely have to be to accommodate the three stalls.
Probably wouldn't have been under the old design maybe, but there has to be now under the new design, is that the thinking?
I think
In
there
the-
has-
Is
It
that
would
a
be
gravel driveway,
It's
No.
paved.
Dave? And will the new driveway be paved?
Yes.
Are there any plans to use the driveway on Ridge?
That little,
That would be untouched as part of
yeah.
the change.
Do you plan to use it at all? Do you use it at all now?
Very rarely. My husband used to use it when it was snowing.
Or you want to have the option to use it?
Well, then, with that,
I don't know, I'm just asking you what your plans are.
don't know. We
It
didn't
shows on the
think about
drawing,
it.
which
it's
is
so
why I'm
small.
asking the
It's such a
question.
small little piece. I mean, it might be nice to have it there, just for quick access.
While the driveway is being plowed, that's when Dad would typically use it.
For our purposes, the plan is to not make any changes in the frequency that you're using it, which is
Yes.
intermittent.
Very rarely.
Okay.
When it snows.
Tell me what's in the addition itself. I know we've got three-car garage, we've got a temporary apartment. What is that like? And then what else is in the addition?
There's a main, just to visualize this, they're going to create a two-story addition. On the left side will be the three-bay garage. Above the garage, there's a small loft area that's associated with the temporary apartment or with the family room, which is what it would be if it's not an apartment. And it connects with the, no, I'm talking about the second floor now.
The media room,
There's a sort of there's a small finished area in addition to that, will just become part of the house. It will not be part of the apartment. On the first floor, you will enter through an entrance between the garage and the house, and you'll go through a mudroom, and there'll be a laundry room to the left, which will be used both by the resident in the temporary apartment and the family. And then you turn left and you will enter the main area of the temporary apartment, which will be an open, I believe it's going to be an open floor plan with a small kitchen area. And there's a bedroom in the back with a bathroom. Is that pretty accurate?
Is there a separate entrance and exit to the temporary apartment, or you have to go through the primary residence to get to the apartment?
There's a shared entrance that both the main house and the apartment will
But
use.
not a separate one for the apartment?
No.
Okay. And is it proposed that the apartment will be in place for a 4-year period?
Yes.
And at the end of the 4-year period, or before the end of the 4-year period, if you still wanted to use it for an in-law apartment, would it be your proposal to come back to the board for an extension? Is that the thinking?
Yes.
Because you don't know whether or not, it may be longer than 4 years. Okay. Acknowledging the fact the bylaw does say 4 years, due respect. I told you. Let me ask my colleagues, Manny, Manny, you have any questions of the applicant?
Just a couple. So, just to clarify, with the proposed drawings and plans, you're no longer asking for the variance on the side setback.
Correct.
You'll be within the 10-foot. And I'm still unclear if we have enough specificity about the green coverage there, the evergreen planting and shielding.
Well,
I'm looking at my colleagues, because if you're going to agree to it, it sounds like the holly tree is on the neighbor's
I
property.
measured from the holly tree to the ledge. So. and
But
that-
the holly's on their
there's
property.
Right.
and they've identified that as the end of the landscape.
That almost implies that you'll be planting on their side of the lot line, which
Well, we would be, I think
Sounds
we
odd.
would specifically answer that we would be planting on the Voight side of the lot line.
Unless they wanted to pay for it. then-
Yeah, I mean, that we had, I don't know that you've discussed specific plantings.
okay.
But in any case, the idea, the purpose of the plantings is
Is to do screening.
is for screening.
Yep.
So generally, when people want to do this, I've, seen arborvitaes used or other types of evergreens. Arborvitaes are quick growing. They can be planted, they can be planted pretty small. If they're planted at between a 4 to 6 foot size, which is quite large, they will very quickly grow to be.
Yeah, I think on this, what we'll have to do is assume that the request on the table is an approximate 35-foot-long strip along the property line or nearby the property line for the purpose of screening the proposed addition from the Polly's property, and that some form of evergreen will be used.
Okay.
The Board of Appeals isn't expert at, although we have sit on a number of Thayer nursery matters, we are not expert in matters of nursery stock. And that will begin at about the beginning of the existing garage, which everybody knows where it is. Right? And it will extend northerly. Okay, Manny.
So one more question I had. So you're still requesting relief for the rear setback restriction.
That's correct.
And was the Zervas one of the folks who signed the petition?
No, they wrote their own, I'm sorry.
I missed that.
Yeah, they sold.
'Cause that's the
They sent
property.
a letter.
They signed, okay.
Yeah, they have their own.
Okay.
With a very strong letter of support. I can-
And I guess one more question, just on the request specifically. The third variance is to vary the terms of 3A9 to allow concurrent construction.
Correct.
Got it. No more questions.
Kathleen?
My question, I mean, you've come before us before for a situation where there's new construction and, and I agree that it makes no sense to make you build the house and then wreck it and add addition. I mean, to add the apartment, it just doesn't make any sense. And so we've given that variance before. My concern is actually looking at the ownership interest and how that's being handled, because our language in this permit, in this special permit is a little unusual. This, I understand, is property that's owned by a trust at the moment. And so we have in the special permit language in section 9, a requirement regarding the ownership. It has to be 50%. Obviously, with the nominee trust, you never know who the owners are, because that's the whole point of having a nominee trust. So we don't know who the beneficiaries are. We don't know who the actual owners are. And so I don't know how we're going to handle the compliance with that section of the special permit requirements. So it said residence by a tenant not named in the special permit, except, so we'd have to be putting in Ronit's name as an occupant for the special permit. But then it talks about, having a 50% interest in the property. So I don't know how you were going to address that.
For the owner.
Yeah, because right now, I mean, we don't know who the 50% owner is. This nominee trust, as I said,
I mean, Ronit can certainly talk about it. We did talk about that as we were
Yeah.
preparing for this, and I believe that they are still discussing, it's really an estate planning process that they're going through right now. It's only been
Right.
a year since Herb died. The trust already existed. It's a nominee trust. Ronit's the trustee at the moment, you know.
But nominee
but I
trusts, as we
understand
all
what
know,
you're
are
saying.
not real trusts.
Right.
So,
You're
so
right.
the question is, if you're going to move it from the nominee trust to, people do those irrevocable trusts and all that sort of stuff as part of the estate planning, all that kind of thing. We have an issue about knowing whether or not the owners are 50% owners.
So, know nothing about the law, I work with infants, so just bear with me.
Well, it's kind of the same thing.
Yeah. So I've been talking to my lawyer, and we are in the process of making the trust 50% my son, 50% me.
Okay. I'm just trying to see how we would draft this special permit to make sure that we've met the requirements of the.
Or could it be addressed in the variance?
The variance doesn't, the variance is a different thing. That's talking about the timing. The special permit for the accessory apartment is the part that has the requirement about the ownership, not the variance.
Can you make a representation that you currently comply with the provisions of the special, with the zoning bylaw with respect to the current ownership without disclosing to us who the beneficiaries are?
Their only family, right? Only, yeah. I
Can you-
believe, I thought, yes, I believe that we do currently comply. Also, we're going to make some changes, so it'll be
Can
clear.
you represent that you won't change the ownership without complying with the bylaw, and then if you do, you'll seek
yes.
additional relief from the board?
Yes,
Okay,
Okay?
good.
just
So
needed to ask.
if the board, depending upon how the board disposes of this matter, we're going to have to, take your representation, Mary McKettrick, BBO number, that you've represented to the board, that the ownership situation is compliant with the terms of the special permit, and to the extent that you modify the ownership of the property, it will remain compliant. We're not restricting your ability to alienate the real estate. You can do that, but you can only alienate the real estate in a way that complies with the requirements of the bylaw with respect to the occupancy of the temporary apartment, unless you come back to the board and seek further relief, or we get relief from the town meeting. I mean, that's where we are with that. All right?
Exactly.
fair?
I absolutely correct, but that's a good way to handle it, since they are still in the process of figuring out how they're going to
Okay.
handle the property.
question.
And we did talk about the requirements of the bylaw, and they do understand the 50% requirement, so at the present time, they do comply, but.
And for our purposes,
clearer.
this is for you.
Yes.
Okay. And nobody else? Okay. Okay, any other questions?
So that's
Kathy?
it.
All right. What is the timing of the improvements here? What are we talking about?
They hope to start during this construction season.
Okay.
They have they're working very hard on getting more detailed plans ready.
Any other questions from, anything else you'd like to add, Mary?
Nothing.
Okay, can I ask if there's anyone in the audience who'd like to speak in favor of the application? Mrs. White. Welcome to the board.
Thank you.
Your name and address for the record.
Sure, it's Elizabeth White and 36 Ridge Road. So I've been a longtime neighbor of the Voigt family, and I first met Ronit when we served on the warrant committee together. And then about probably a year later, she and Herb bought 56 Hinckley Road right after we had met. And, having lived in the neighborhood and prior to the Voigts buying the home was like invisible from the street. It was covered with overgrown trees, it was painted dark brown, and you really couldn't see it. And since the Voigts bought the home, it really now stands out in the neighborhood. It has unique architectural style, attractive grounds, and inside the home, as Marion had referred to, it's just got beautiful detail, and it's just been beautifully maintained by the Voigt family. They've been wonderful neighbors, have contributed to the community, as has been previously said. They've offered their home for many community events and fundraisers, and I recall one particular time when Herb was holding a reception for visiting international colleagues, and we had a blizzard, and they couldn't have the event, but the caterer couldn't be canceled, so Herb and Renee invited the entire neighborhood over for a great party. It was probably one of the best parties I had ever been to. So recently, I read an article that was called "Why Mother-in-Laws Matter," and it was addressing the needs
She's
of...
getting ready. She's getting ready.
I know.
can tell.
Oh, I'm a long way from
Betty's
being a
getting
mother-in-law.
ready.
He doesn't have a girlfriend yet, so anyway, all right. So anyway,
So he
this
says.
article addressed the needs of flexibility in zoning for housing, and our master plan also speaks to that issue. If possible, many people choose to age in place. After the sudden and unexpected death of Herb, Renee had shared with me that she just didn't think she could stay in this big house by herself. So when I heard that this house is that the family has loved for so many years, and when I heard that Justin and Jen were thinking about buying the home and having an in-law set up added to the home, I was thrilled. And it would be exciting to have them so close by and to see the girls grow up. And I had told Justin probably about a month ago that I've got to
Take your time.
I know.
that my regret is that I didn't buy my parents' home after my father passed away. My mother moved up to Fuller. She liked it there, but I think she would have preferred to stay in her own home, and I had always thought it would have been nice if I could have bought the home and she could have stayed with me, you know, for the remainder of her life. So when Justin told me he was doing this, I told him my story and said this would be a nice thing to do, because the neighborhood wouldn't be the same without Renee did it. So,
Great, Betty. Okay, who's willing to go after Betty?
Do you want me to read, us to read the letter that's in the file?
We read most of it. You're welcome to come on up if you'd like, Jim.
The eloquent one, the family
Susan.
will read, Susan will read it.
Susan Riley, 57 Hinckley Road. I actually don't think I need to reread the whole letter. I would like to reiterate the pieces of it that I think are most important, and other things that other people have mentioned, is the ability to stay in one's home as one ages. The fact that this is a neighborhood that has many generations who have continued to live in the neighborhood. And I guess my thought would be, if I were to come before this board again, like I did 30 years ago, to ask for variance because one of my children wanted to allow me to stay in the home, that it would be granted. And I think there are probably other people in the neighborhood who would like to be able to do the same thing. And I think the way their architecture has been drawn up, it is a seamless construction. That's one of the reasons our petition got granted over 30 years ago. We had a direct abutter, exactly the same situation as the Pauleys. It's actually, that was the house across the street from the Pauleys, who didn't want us to attach our mudroom to our garage because the garage was out of compliance. And the board identified that they thought our addition was adding value to our home, and in adding value to our home was also adding value to the other homes in the neighborhood. And like the Voigt's addition, our addition was exactly the same architectural style. Was not, and theirs is as well. So I think that those are all important considerations as you reflect on this matter.
Thank you, Susan. Anybody else wish to speak in favor of the application? Yes, in the rear. Okay, both of you. Okay, one at a time. No, come on up. You're both raising your hands. That's fine. Welcome.
I won't read my letter, but I'll just reiterate what Susan said. I'm Dennis O'Brien, 9 Columbine's home on the butter in the back. What I'd just like to emphasize is what a creative solution this is, to have people living in place, and much like what Susan said, when it comes time, if it comes time and I want to stay in the neighborhood, I hope that the board can, have the same thoughtful process and maybe even some more wisdom as we think about creative solutions. So I think it's a great example of how we can be creative about people living in place. And I'll add that when Justin was a young man growing up, next door, he used to play guitar and drums all the time. And so when I heard he was moving back in, I said, yay. I want to hear this. So, but mostly I just think it's a really creative solution, and we're going to need many more of these.
Thank you, Dennis. Anybody else? Yes.
Good evening. I'm John Kerr. I live at 84 Hinckley Road, just a couple of doors down from the intersection where the Voight House is. And I moved in to 84 in 1955, a couple of years before Susie, as I have called her all her life. I just would like to say I've walked by the Voight's house every day, practically of my life, it doesn't stand out. As everyone has said, it sort of is set back. In fact, it seems like it's set back in the lot so that there is a fair amount of space going out to Ridge and to Hinckley. I don't think that, now I'm stand to be corrected, but from the plans and the elevations that I've seen, it does not look like there will be much in the way of visual a change from the street looking at the house. I think you will see the house as it exists now, and perhaps off to the left towards the Polly's, if you look down the lot line, you will see that addition sticking out. But I think as you drive by on Hinckley and drive by on Ridge, and you're not texting, and you happen to look up and look at the Voight
Wait,
House.
the Traffic Mitigation Committee will get that. Stop all that texting.
There you go. So that's my point, is I don't think it's going to be a big visual impact on the neighborhood,
Okay,
which is always, in my opinion, a good thing.
thank you. Thank you very much, John. Anybody else wishes to be heard in favor of the application? Anybody wishes to speak in opposition to the application? There is no such person. Anybody else wish to be heard on the application at all? Okay, we're going to close the testimony, then thank the applicant and her counsel for joining us tonight. I'll ask my colleagues if they have any thoughts on the applicant. We're going to vote on it right now in accordance with the open meeting law. Kathleen?
I do think that the variance, as I said, we've gotten that request before from Attorney McKettrick on other projects to sort of not require somebody to build the addition and then rip it apart and put in the accessory apartment. So I think that just makes logical sense. I'm totally in favor with that. And then I think that, addressing the neighbor's concern with the new plan is I know that makes the shape a little bit more complicated, but I think it's an elegant solution to address that objection.
Manny?
I agree. Thank you for the presentation, Mrs. McKettrick. I think the bylaw provisions have been met here. The rear setback is minimal. The neighbor most impacted is in support. And I agree that it's illogical to require that one set of construction be done, torn down, to build an apartment afterwards. So I'd be inclined to vote in favor.
Okay.
For both the variance and the special permit.
So for the record, what we're talking about here is we've got a variance for relief from the rear setback from 30 feet to 23.6 feet.
Yep.
We've got a variance from the provisions of the temporary apartment so that it needn't be located in existing dwellings, but in a proposed dwelling, which is, as the applicant has indicated, is really a matter of time rather than anything else. And we've got a special permit to allow the temporary apartment in accordance with the bylaw in the first instance. Those are the three matters in front of us. I agree with my colleagues. I also agree that I hear you on the design issue, but I think when weighed against the compliance with the bylaw and the rights of the property owners, I think it probably outweighs it, given the fact that they're an aggrieved party and they object, and given the standard of the variance, on balance, I think you're probably better off changing the design than seeking a variance which you may not have obtained. Now, I agree with the testimony that it could be, this is a pretty unique property, quite unique, and quite nice as well, by the way. And, it remains to be seen how that affects the look, but I do think it does have a bit of a side appearance from Hinckley, and the people, I think, really take the property in from the intersection of the street rather than the side, I think. But we'll see, and I know you'll do a good job in the design, and it's carefully done, and there's details here, and we'll see how that comes out. And I'm in favor of the screening, which will measure 35 feet from the front of the current garage, and some type of evergreen planting. And we'll accept your representation on compliance with the bylaw with respect to the ownership and modifications to the bylaw to the extent that it gets modified, and the board will be available to the extent there's a question on that, and perhaps make a note that that might be a good thing for town meeting to address the number of issues. Lastly, I want to comment on the aging in place. I think housing is a huge issue for the town, and wherever we can save units and get people living in this town of all ages, I really think it's important, critically important that we do this. So while this is one more unit, one more unit becomes 2 more units, and we need more units, and we need to do more to do things like this. So for all the people who testified, thank you for that, and please continue to advocate for additional housing in this town, which I think we so desperately need. And I think the whole region needs it. So I applaud you for this creative solution and appreciate Betty White's passionate, and I know it's from the heart, because I know Betty, about her own experience, and I know a lot of people our age are experiencing this, so bravo. And so that's a long way of saying I agree with my colleagues, and we're going to grant your variances and your special permits by a vote of 3-0. So congratulations to you. It'll take us a little while to write this up and to get it to you. You'll work with Beverly on getting the actual variances and special permit, and Mrs. McKettrick can arrange to have that recorded at the Norfolk Registry of Deeds in Dedham, so it'll run with the land, and you'll be in good shape. You'll have 1 year from the date of these variances being granted to complete the improvements. If they can't be completed within that time, you should come back to the Board of Appeals and not let that lapse.
Oh, I hope so.
And we wish you a lot of luck. Good luck to you.
Good luck.
Thank you very much.
Congratulations.
Thank you to everyone who came out. Good to see you.
Thanks very much.
Well, I don't know, it's a little bit of a challenge, but it's okay. It's okay. Oh, yeah.
My mother's maiden name was O'Donnell, so I always tell people that we must be related
I know.
from generations.
I know.
There you go.
Yeah. She was one of 8, so I have
Appreciate
a lot
that.
of
Thank you
relatives
very
on
much.
that side.
Oh, really?
Where did you grow up?
New York.
Okay. She's in Dorchester, O'Donnell, so.
Yeah, no, and we don't have any, really?
Okay, all right.
Oh, yeah.
Where are your neighbors at?
You're responsible for this whole thing.
I am, because I'm sitting on the wrong side of the table.
That must be it.
Who's going to write this one?
Who's got time?
You know what will probably happen? Is Marion will write it.
Oh, that's right. Why don't we have her do it?
Well, I've done a couple of them already. I'll do this one.
So, okay, so you guys can head back to the Columbines, and the Board of Appeals can continue with its deliberate. Good to see you. Yep, thank you. Okay, we're going to call to order our second hearing of the evening. It's the 7:45 hearing upon the application of David and Catherine Finn, dated January 18, on file with the board for variances from the terms of Section 5A1 and 6D3 of the bylaw. The applicant is seeking to build a 13 by 33 shed dormer
Didn't bring a cheering section?
addition to the rear of the second family home at 84 Governors Road. Section 5A1, height of the built-in bylaw limits new buildings or new portions of buildings to 2.5 stories. Calculations taken from plans dated September 7, 2018 indicate that this proposal would result in the creation of 751 square feet of space within the prescribed 4-foot envelope when only 647 square feet are allowed. This dormer addition as proposed would violate Section 5A1. The property does contain one minor nonconformity, and the detached garage is less than the required 8 feet from the rear property line. The property is located in the Residence C district. The existing home was built in approximately 1927. All is set forth in the application. I have in the application, in the file, the application, a letter from the building commissioner consistent with the conditions of the ad that I read, a site plan from C.S. Kelly survey showing the property and some drawings showing the dormer as proposed. I see the applicant and his counsel are here. Welcome to the Board of Appeals. How can we help you?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
If you could pass these out. I'm Attorney Bob Sheffield, and I believe there might be one page of the plan that may not be in your folder. I would like to distribute it at
Thank you,
this
Mr.
time.
Sheffield.
I'm pleased to represent David and Catherine Finn of Governor's Road, who are feeling the pains of a growing family and are seeking to put on a small addition to the rear of their property that they've owned for the last 12 years. The addition is 13 by 33 and will be in the form of a shed dormer at the rear of the property and should not be really visible from the front street. The addition will contain one bedroom and one bathroom and also a small room for laundry room. As I've said, the applicants have lived there for close to 13 years, and they love the neighborhood, they love the town of Milton, and they definitely want to continue living there. And the addition appears to be the only way to handle their growing need. They have children sleeping in the same bedroom, and as they get older, it's more important to give each person his personal space. The dormer as provided is 751 square feet, which is 77% of the floor below it, rather than the 2/3, which is normally permitted in the bylaw. The Finns have spoken to all their neighbors, and no one has expressed any problem or objection. They have received written support from 13 of their abutters. Notices went out to the whole East Milton. 69 notices in total, and it seems that there has been no objection or no concern with the proposed change. I believe the proposed change will be good for the neighborhood, it will be good for the applicant, and will be an improvement of the values in the immediate area. And it will show the neighborhood that the town is willing to accept the growing family without causing them to leave. I believe that this is an unusual property insofar as it is 14,000 square feet, where normally the houses in the neighborhood are between 6,000 and 8,000 square feet.
Good size.
It's a nice lot, yeah.
And it is relatively
Because it was
unique.
two, I could see.
Pardon me?
It was two.
Yeah. I think it was the builder's home.
How many bedrooms are in the house today?
There are 4 bedrooms in the house, and they feel as though they need 5 because they have...
One full bath that we all share all the bedrooms are on the same floor. There's an existing conditions plan on that A3 drawing he
Yep.
provided. I'm sorry, I'm David Finn. Sorry, I should have introduced myself. There's, at the top of the stairs, there's an existing bedroom in the front facing the street that we use for the master bedroom. It has that door to the existing roof deck. That's the master bedroom as we're using it now. There's an existing bedroom below that in the back of the house where our 13-year-old son sleeps. On the other side of the hallway next to the bathroom is his 13-year-old twin sister. We gave the oldest their own bedrooms at this point. And then we have an 11-year-old son and a 9-year-old daughter sharing the other bedroom currently. So by granting us this addition, it would allow us to have a master suite in the attic with a bathroom. We're putting the laundry connections there. We may not use it right away, but the idea is, because right now the laundry's in the basement. And that front room near the laundry would be a walk-in closet, basically.
So the 5th bedroom's going to be on the 3rd floor,
Correct.
along with an additional bath and a proposed laundry, and
Correct.
some type of large walk-in closet or something.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
What's up there now?
There is a walk-up attic that was built with the house with a trap door that we use for storage now, and it's fully,
When you mean trap door, pull down?
yeah, it's a pull-down door that we've actually never pulled down. And it's fully planked, and we have an exhaust fan in the attic that we had to replace, and we had to pull the planks off. So when we saw that the contractor said, "Oh, you're lucky," he said, "Your joist run."
You got structure there.
Yeah, structurally, he said, it runs in the same direction as the rest of the house, so.
So you'll be adding a staircase as well?
Yeah, part of this renovation, you can see from the plans, there's a staircase over the existing staircase,
And when you finish, is the whole roof going to be reshingled?
front and back, yes.
And the siding of the dormer where it's,
Will match.
and you'll be painting the whole house?
I have to paint the whole house.
Any questions? Are you all set, Bob? Do you
Yes,
have any,
I believe so.
do you have anything else you'd like to add to the
My
board?
wife apologized for not being here, but she's with the kids.
Manny, do you have anything you'd like, any questions?
None for me.
No, I just wanted to say that I appreciate the fact that the addition's in the rear, so that from the street, you aren't really going to see it.
Yeah, and we set it back 2 feet on either side, because I don't like
Step
the
it
look
back.
of the ski slope from the street, the roof line, so I wanted to keep it's keeping the natural roof line.
Yeah, no, and that was nicely done, and I noticed that you already have a porch that sticks out the back anyway.
The back of the house, the first floor sticks out farther, there's a full foundation there, and it goes out, the kitchen actually extends out a little bit, yes.
So this isn't going out any farther than...
No, we're staying within, yeah.
Right. I'd also like to add that the garage is about 3 feet from the rear property line. It was built in 1930, and at that time, they built them as far back as they could. Currently, they have an 8-foot requirement, and I think it should be acknowledged in the decision, if it's approved, that this is a non-conforming, pre-existing non-conforming property for purposes of the approval.
I don't know, I mean, since you're not touching the garage, I don't even know why we have to even mention that.
Because it's a pre-existing non-conforming property,
Yeah.
and sometimes they say you can't
But nobody's saying that,
Nobody's saying it.
right?
It's noted in the,
It's noted in the ad,
Okay,
and not only that.
because it was in the
Oh, yeah.
letter from
Yes.
the, yeah.
Mr.
Okay.
Prondak.
But we're not asking for that relief. You don't think you
No
need the
relief.
relief.
yeah.
Okay. But you would like it to be mentioned in the, because it would make you sleep easier, is
It would
that?
make me sleep easier, and it would,
I asked the same question.
All right, duly noted. That'll be up to the board's pleasure. Is there anything else that you'd like to add?
no.
Okay, we're going to close the test. Members of the board, any questions?
I was keeping 4 kids, right?
4 kids,
Yeah,
2
4.
boys, 2 girls.
2 twin 13-year-olds, 1 11, 1 9.
One 11-year-old boy, one 9-year-old girl. Yep.
Okay, I just think
Let
I'm
me,
writing this one.
We're going to close the testimony, and we'll debate the merits of the application in accordance with the open meeting law. Manny?
Thank you for the presentation. I think the need is clearly established. This is a unique property. It will be done in a way that would, as I think Kathleen said, wouldn't be intrusive on the neighborhood. This would be an improvement, and I'm inclined to vote in favor. And all neighbors are in support. No one appeared in opposition, so all that said.
I agree with what Manny said.
I should note for the record, we do have a letter from 15 abutters, 15 nearby property owners along Governors and Plymouth, nearby street, in support of the application. So I should have noted that earlier. I agree with my colleagues. I'm going to vote to, I think it's modest, I think it's a good improvement, and it is demonstrably needed in what I agree to be a unique lot for East Milton. So I'm going to vote to support the variance as well. I'd also support to note for the record, if the applicant would feel better, that the garage is a pre-existing nonconformity, if that's important to the applicant. It doesn't affect my sense of duty to the board. So I'd be in favor of that. With that, I'd ask the board its pleasure on supporting the variance.
Aye.
Yes.
Okay, so you have your variance, and congratulations. You've got
Thank you.
1 year to make the improvements, just like the prior applicant. Mr. Sheffield can help you make arrangements to record the variance at the registry in Dedham, and the variance will run with the land and won't be personal to you, and wish you the best of luck.
Could I ask if
Hello,
we could have an expeditious decision, because they want to have this completed before the start of school in September, and time is,
Do our best to accommodate you. You're in luck. I'm around this week, but not next, so I may get to it.
Thank you very much.
there you go, Manny, steps up. Okay, good luck to you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for coming.
thank you.
Yep, thank you.
This meeting, the Board of Appeals is adjourned.